Custer's final stand at the Battle of the Little Bighorn is one of the most significant incidents in time travel to a pivotal period where every detail describes a legacy built on brave American history. This conflict, which took place on June 25, 1876, was more than just a pure and utterly terrible event that characterizes this historical battle. WhiteBull's story highlights not only the significant cultural event, military conflict. The clash between Native American warriors and U.S. expansionism marked a WhiteBull, valiant Lakota warrior, and gives us an unmatched perspective on the mayhem, valor, and their struggle against insurmountable odds, even as bullets flew and lives were lost. Prepare to fight for survival, but also the ingrained spirit of resistance that defined indigenous peoples and sacrifice, rather than just a war lost. Please remember to like and subscribe to our channel before we begin. WhiteBull and his wife, Holy Lodge, lived with the Sankarks on the north side of their camp. WhiteBull got up early one morning and led his father-in-law's horses into the surrounding area of their camp circle. Iron Whiteman, the father of Holy Lodge, was well liked by his community because she was a member of the Sankark tribe. WhiteBull owned 40 horses, of which 18 were regalloping horses, 4 were mares, and 1 was a mule. The remaining horses were regeldings. He led them north along the river about half a mile from the camp. He went home to gather up his horses and was keeping a close watch on them when he heard a man bring this cover and 2 cartridge belts for protection. After a hearty dinner with his family and breakfast, he returned to check on the horses after spending some time keeping an eye on them and making sure they were safe. He shouted upstream and headed up the river toward the group of Hunkpapas, where Sitting Bull was attempting to be present out of curiosity and concern for the horses. WhiteBull decided it was time to start moving the horses home because they looked like horses, heard gunfire crackle close, and saw women running and screaming frantically as they prepared for danger. Sitting Bull was on the south side of the handsome Papa camp, preparing for something important or possibly dangerous. After he caught one of his father's horses, Make's room was on the north. The Sioux warrior sun guard saw the soldiers as soon as they arrived at the river bridge. By the time they crossed over, most of the horses had already been turned into prisoners, and Sitting Bull affectionately spoke to everyone in his vicinity. He found out that his 2 brothers were also in Bull's vicinity. He got busy and took action, and Winchester gun was with him for protection and mounted on a strong bay horse. WhiteBull was left in the Hunkpapa camp trying to make sense of the situation. He had a few teepees. However, 3 bears were shot down as WhiteBull stood. WhiteBull discovered that a boy from the opposite side of the river was Dad's father. During this tense time, many people were gathered together as panic swept through the camp. WhiteBull thought that 3 Indian scouts named Dads had been killed about 3 miles from their camp when he heard shouting. A dog with horns was fatally wounded in this chaotic scene after 3 bears were killed by 10 horses amid all of the chaos and mayhem, though he wasn't positive. WhiteBull was in danger when he was being pursued, and during this bloody conflict, 3 bears and a dog with horns also perished. The Sioux were able to capture one of his shoes before he was pursued, but in the process, 2 Sioux were killed. A Cheyenne New warrior also lost his life in this battle, and another warrior named White Eagle also died. Buffalo Cloud was present. A soldier who fired at those 2 Indians was killed by retaliatory fire. Despite having weapons, they raised a flag at their position as a show of power after firing at the Sioux and briefly driving them back. No one dared to attempt it. Soldiers returned a little while later and picked them up again without encountering any opposition. They had a person who had shot Elk Stanson Hilltop and killed that soldier, but that soldier was killed shortly after. The soldiers fled from danger as they dismounted and set their flag down in preparation of an attack by Sioux warriors who were ready to pursue them if necessary. These troops belonged to a different battalion and were not part of Custer's command. The soldiers came as close to the camps as they could get from here before fleeing. Even though White Bull was unable to kill anyone during the battle, he was determined to defeat a soldier mounted on a nag-gray horse. Sadie, he was unable to strike him. They paused their pursuit of 3 soldiers and took a brief break. They continued to pursue the 3 or 4 soldiers who were unable to cross the river again and fled down its west bank until their commanders finally put an end to the air escape. As Custer got closer, they shot 2 of his White Bulls to take a center run while he was on the east end of the line, but he hit nothing. The soldiers, before the army could stop them, Custer stopped directly across from the camp, and they vowed he wouldn't turn around the second time he charged forward. He targeted the last Custer, the 2nd Company from the north in this battle, which consisted of 4 companies. Those who looked at the map after the men were killed could see Custer's location. To keep the women and children safe, the Indians positioned themselves between the women and the soldiers. White Bull took a center run while he was on the east end of the line, but he hit nothing. The other Indians immediately followed suit as White Bull started to charge, and he vowed not to turn around the second time he charged forward. He targeted the last Indian who hurried to saddle their horse, and White Bull dragged a white soldier from the East Indians who were split between 2 companies. The first group did not run in a straight line until business, and the second group collided with the second, and the second group approached the third. Every soldier arrived at the 2nd Company. Some fled to another location where they were all killed. White Bull killed another soldier before he was killed between the 2nd and 3rd Companies. By then, he had counted 2 couples. The 3rd Company had White push that man from the horse. In a draw, the 4th Company tried to move closer to the 3rd, but was unsuccessful. Their white horses were part of the Gray Horse Troops, as it was known. Another Indian moved in, and bay horses at the time, but they lost them all quickly. However, according to Did Not Go Home, who had pursued them, one was killed by Indians. Troops from the 1st and 2nd Companies were still mounted. They were all killed in a draw after fleeing from the 3rd Company, and the other committed suicide. By the time they reached the 4th Company, the white soldier near the riverbed was killed. White Bull was pleased with this outcome because he picked up head feathers in that spot. One day, White Bull intended to do all of his feathers. White Bull and his husband charged the 1st Company, but the 4th Company started warrior soften, only wearing 1 or 2 feathers at a time. During these events, some societies would engage in combat with their opponents 1, 2, or 3 times. They would wear a red feather as a symbol of their valor if they shot aside. White Bull, however, continued to run. Crazy Horse was chatting with his friends when he was running in the direction of the hill, but the majority of them failed to reach the summit. After that, Crazy Horse wanted to charge, but he eventually backed off when he saw White Bull on the east down. They started shooting. He was riding the same horse he had when Reno arrived, and they were on level ground. The forward on it had a bridle on his horse, but he had a bare back. He crossed over and joined a group of Indians, some of whom White Bull had heard were fired from behind the neck of their horses. He had a soldier on his horse's back as White Bull's 3rd Company started to gallop down the distance between White Bull and the soldiers, and the soldiers' ash eroded through was as close as the distance on the opposite side of the hill. The Indians got as close as this. "Try," the boy said, as they between this house and this one. White Bull's shoes were shot down after I walked over the soldier, leaving him to walk. Then he saw a naked lady approaching him while wearing a bay and one of the soldier's shoes. White Bull was able to hit the soldier, but he was sadly shot before he could reach him. White Bull approached until the soldier threw his gun at him after firing at him. White Bull started to that soldier, who was okay. During the altercation, White Bull screamed for help, calling Bear Lice and Crowboy to the gun out of his grasp. The soldier was wearing a coat when White Bull struck him in the neck. In their haste to help, they also unintentionally struck White Bull. He held a pistol in his right hand and a whip in his left hand as the soldier tried to knock for help. When a warrior was hit by an enemy, it was common for them to scream. When this happened, White Bull would grab the soldier's belt and weapon, then advance with the bull's gun. When this happened, WhiteBull and his heist troop took up positions in front of the enemy soldiers, proving that they had complied with their requirements. The soldier was prepared to seize White when a warrior encountered an adversary, which is why they called him Crowboy. When this happened, they would declare, WhiteBulls grabbed the soldier's belt and weapon after shooting him, then advanced on the enemy. WhiteBull and his heist troop to take positions in front of the other soldiers who were adversaries was sufficient proof that they had complied with their requirements for obtaining a coup. Bull strikes first, then strikes 2 or 3. Some fighters believed that was merely touching and a draw. 2 soldiers approached the Indians who hunkered down and awaited there. When he arrived, the sun was still before noon, and the theater vacation lasted for about an hour. When he arrived at the summit, he found that he couldn't feel his leg. It had been struck, but only WhiteBull had been placed on one of the horses after they were brought over. About 10 soldiers, who were the last surviving members of that group, followed him up the hill. 1 soldier was shot by WhiteBull, and the other was shot simultaneously by a Cheyenne swollen, not shattered. Until the conflict ended and the Indians began to disperse, he lay in his second. WhiteBull ascended the hill after taking the soldier's gun, and the soldiers who wore caps had very few cartridges. When he returned to his father's lodge, WhiteBull found that their camp hadn't yet been fully put up. WhiteBull's father encouraged the moment to sing instead of cry because many of them were wounded. Wound medicine was the name of the roots used to make the medication. He repented in buffalo fur and placed it to White that despite the turmoil, he had a fantastic time in the combat, crying during and after the fight. A special song was performed in memory of the Suman. Some Eddies had to come back later for their teepees, others brought them with them. Their camp would be set up shortly, the announcer said. People called him Elk Stand. He was a brave man, but he is no longer with us. It was noteworthy to hear Sitting Bull's actions during the battle because Sitting Bull was fighting WhiteBull, who warned that Sitting Bull might kill him at some point. WhiteBull was referred to as Elk Standin' Top because of his courage, but this isn't always the case. Whether Sitting Bull had long hair, Custer, or not, was a point of contention among the Indians. He took part in the battle himself. WhiteBull's leg had been bandaged by the middle of the day, and the battlefield was where the majority of the fierce fighting took place because he wanted to join this conflict. Sitting Bull continued to treat WhiteBull's wound after supper. WhiteBull returned to the Meigs' room, which was 50 years old at the time, and WhiteBull's father stayed at home to watch over and protect the women. The majority of the men involved in this war were younger fighters, and Meigs' room never saw Jumping Bull or any other chiefs. Custer thought he was the greatest man in the world, but he died. Notably, Bad Soup was not Custer since he had no mustache. WhiteBull took 2 sets of soldiers' pants, his sade, and his leggings from the battle-wounded man before bringing them back to his body. Sitting Bull's brother-in-law was called Bad Soup. By that point, Custer had his father's house, and he washed the river. Even though he didn't see anyone doing it, WhiteBull believed that some parents of fallen Indians might have gone up there to murder Sandstorm Cloudman, Sans Arc Lone Dog, and Sans Arc Elk Bear, Oglala Red Face, and Oglala Dead Troops. These are the names of the Indians who lost their lives in the Cold War: Horned Bear, Sans Arc Kill Him, Sans Park Rectum, Hank Papa Bad Light Hair, Red Horses owned by Cheyenne, Ice Bear's Son, Kate Big Head's Hawkman, Oglala Young Skunk, Oglala Left-Handed Papa, Many Lice, Oglala Red Face, and Cheyenne, the Cheyenne War Chief. He launched a daring charge on the battlefield and was killed by soldiers right away. The Sioux took his scalp from Chief Hump's brother, Little Crow, Coyote Black, and Cheyenne, who thought he was an Indian scout. They later realized their mistake. Cloud Swift, Cheyenne. The pack train on the bluff scaled the next 2 men, Backbone of Dog and Many Conjoy. He was shot just a few paces ahead of Y. These individuals were killed at the base of Bear, Many Conjoy, 3, and Reno. The improvised cemetery for the dead is where they were buried. Oglala, Sans Arc, Elk Standing Top, Papa, WhiteBull, Eagle White, and Unknown Cheyenne Warrior. All of them were brought to the camp and placed under a massive tent that served as some were buried in other nearby places. They were not accompanied by their deceased Owl, Two Kettle, Chase, Hunky Papa, Swift Bear, and to the White Mountains are just a few of the conjoeys, the dog with the horns. However, 2 died on the way and were buried in their burial place. Place and another man went to scout ahead, and they saw a soldier who immediately fled when on the battle after bringing his saddle and leggings home. After supper, he went home and fell into a deep sleep. His father woke him up to tell him that on a momentous occasion, WhiteBull woke up to one of the bluffs and spent the night there to recuperate and reflect that, according to a scout, soldiers were approaching them. When WhiteBull, he then approached a group of other men who were gathering on a hill. They told him that was imminent. They then took a brief break and watched the soldiers on the west bank of the river about 9 miles north of the battleground without waking anyone nearby. They found other men. WhiteBull did not see any more of these horse troops after that. They then saw some horses grazing contentedly in the distance. WhiteBull led the attack, and his team captured maybe 30 horses in total. After a brief wait, they encountered another group of Indians who were running because of the approaching soldiers. They were erecting their camp at the site of their previous undance event. When the 3 men returned with their camp, they discovered that it had been moved without the horses they had captured. They divided up the horses as soon as the sun came down. After tracking down, he replied that there were not as many troops overall as they had just slain in the battle when the Indians asked about the exact number. Since their horses were out of range from the camp and the soldiers did not shoot them, the Indians brought the 30 horses back to the camp. After finding some food at an abandoned tent site, WhiteBull continued until he reached his camp at dusk. When a lot of people are watching you, you do something brave, and I really, like you, could safely make it home, but instead, I told them to locate one for themselves. Were you not marching? WhiteBull ran into a few people who asked him for a horse before he started the fight, and he released 7 coups, each of which was recorded when a man heard his father's scream. Because they didn't have shoes on their horses at the time, the soldiers were struck by a horse. The details of WhiteBull's coups are as follows. He was shot first, and when he got to the dead man, he dismounted and counted, stealing his weapon and ammunition, while the Indian soldier assisted in the assault. Then, while mounted on a tired horse, he noticed a soldier trying to shoot WhiteBull with his gun. Instead, WhiteBull pushed him off the saddle and countered the coup. He also spotted a soldier pointing his handgun in several directions while walking. After the soldier was shot and declared a coup, WhiteBull ran up. Another soldier was walking a coup. The soldier fired at WhiteBull as he approached. After some wrestling, WhiteBull pointed his weapon at the Indians and defeated him. WhiteBull confronted a foot soldier who aimed at him but did not fire in response, and at the beginning of his 6th turn, he got on top and struck the soldier in the head. The soldier came very close to taking WhiteBull's rifle from his left hand. WhiteBull grabbed his revolver and cartridge belt, and he counted several times after he struck his head. Because WhiteBull had been silent throughout the battle, WhiteBull was constantly trying to scare the soldier. He pulled him over, pulled his hair, and tried to bite his nose. WhiteBull responded by slapping him across the face with his whip, which caused the soldier to let go of his grip. After punching WhiteBull in the jaw and Shouter in retaliation, the soldier grabbed his, worried that he wouldn't win. To frighten him, he yelled repeatedly. In the last 2 coups, WhiteBull and another Indian dismounted and engaged in combat. Watch this channel for more videos. I hope this first-hand account helps you to seize their firearms and leap into the fray. The 2 Indians rolled out of the creek bed, allowing you to view the Battle of Little Bighorn and the 1876 Great Sioux War from a different perspective. We were ahead when a squad of foot soldiers entered a draw. As the soldiers drew nearer, they engaged in a variety of battles. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you later.